Okay, good afternoon, everyone. This is for the Hawaii Small Business Innovation Research Program, the Hawaii SBIR. And before we get started, I'd like to introduce our partners in SBIR in Hawaii, the University of Office of Innovation and Commercialization. We actually have two people from OIC on the call. We have Stephen Arbach and Raphael. Maybe Stephen, you can say a few words and then we'll get started with the presentation. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Wayne, and welcome. I see some familiar faces, and for those that are joining the first time, you might have missed 6 other sessions. Wayne will talk about some of those other SBIR, STTR sessions that the University of Hawaii, in collaboration with HTDC, was fortunate to put forward, and quite a good show out, and as well as, I think, dialogue around SBIR. We're excited about this partnership and collaboration because it actually brings more money to our state and more money to trying to drive economic development, which is important for our community. And I think many of you know enough about SBIR, but one of the things I did want to share, in addition to those 7 sessions that have already gone on, the SBIR program is set to sunset in September of 2022. Many of you know, if you look at the history, the Reauthorization Act extended it for 6 years. There's actually a group working on seeing if we can't either extend it or remove the termination of it and continue it, plus some other key initiatives around increasing the award amounts, access to more program managers, plus a whole slew of new improvements. And so stay tuned with SBA and others to track that reauthorization or the removement to make it permanent, because we're watching it closely and it's very important for our community. So welcome, everybody. I think you're going to see a good lineup of content here. I'm going to turn it back to you, Wayne, and thanks again for helping and collaborating with us on this important topic.
Thanks, Steve. Okay, so we'll get started. Hopefully everyone can see my slides and that I can advance it from my other screen. But I guess the agenda for today is I'll go over the HTDC Hawaii SBIR Matching Grant Program first. And then we'll take questions regarding the program, the application, the process, and everything. And then at the end, we can, for companies who might be new to this whole SBIR, STTR thing, I'll provide a quick overview of the federal program and the stuff that Steve just mentioned earlier about continued funding and all that. Just so you guys have some background if you guys are interested or new to the whole SBIR thing. Okay. All right, so this is my contact info. Again, Wayne Layugan, my email and my phone number. If you guys have any questions, feel free to contact me. On this call also, we have our new Hawaii SBIR Program Manager, Cindy Matsuki. This is her contact info here, as well as her email and phone number. So I think for HTDC will be the point of contacts regarding the application, the application process and everything related to Hawaii SBIR. Okay. So bottom line up front, Hawaii does have a matching grant program for Phase 1 SBIR awards. The Hawaii SBIR program can match up to 50% of the federal Phase 1 awards with a maximum of $75,000. So again, the whole purpose is to help companies, become more competitive, and also the funding can pay for expenses that would otherwise be restricted by your federal award. And like a good example is, like travel to meet customers or even paying for market research and business planning. So just some background on the Hawaii SBIR program. This started way back in 1988. HTDC began providing matching grant funds to Hawaii companies who received a federal SBIR grant or STTR grant or contract. Again, these companies are recognized for advancing technology to solve critical challenges for the nation. So I believe the Hawaii SBIR grant program is the longest funded SBIR matching grant program in the US. And again, this provides matching funds for Hawaii-based businesses to enhance their project development, compete for more lucrative awards, to conduct prototype development, and ultimately, the goal of SBIR is to reach successful commercialization. One key point that I'll emphasize here is that in order to apply for the Hawaii matching grant, you would have to have been selected or awarded for a federal phase 1 award. So if you're still thinking about submitting an application or applying for application, the phase 1 match would not be applicable to you because you would not be eligible. However, we do have a Hawaii SBIR Phase 0. So again, this is for companies who are applying for a phase 1 for their first time. The Phase 0, it's a reimbursable award that'll help companies with their grant writing assistance. So again, the grant writing would have to come from a third party. It can't be done by someone in-house. For this part of the process, it's relatively simpler than the phase 1 process because it's just Innovate Hawaii reviewing the applications and selecting them for award. Pretty much companies who would apply for a phase 0 would need to submit proof that they submitted a phase 1 application. Whereas if you were applying for the phase 1 match, you would have to submit proof that you were awarded by the federal agency. Okay. So some interactive, we've had some feedback in the past that, a lot of our presentations should have some kind of interaction. So this is the interactive portion. If you have your mobile device, you can scan that QR code. It'll bring you to our Hawaii SBIR website where the application will go live on November 1st. Sorry, there's a typo there. It should be Hawaii SBIR Phase 1 and Phase 0, not Phase 2. The deadline for these applications are December 16th, 2021. So it's a pretty quick turnaround. So I encourage everyone who is interested and eligible to apply to look at the application and see what documents and information you need to gather so that it can be submitted before the deadline.
Is that first come, first serve, or no?
No. So the funding, so that's how we have the deadline. Once all the applications are submitted, they'll all be prepped for a review committee, which I'll go over in a little bit on the process. But yeah, so it's not first come, first serve. But the reason why I would encourage everyone to get started sooner than later is because of the Hawaii Compliance Express certificate. So we just go like this through this checklist, read through all the application questions. I think, in my opinion, the application is it's a lot simpler than the one you would have to submit to your federal agency. So we're hoping that it's less painful to do. There is an option for the online application to save your progress and resume later if you need. And then, of course, submit all required documents. The HCE certificate that I mentioned, that needs to be compliant, and you need to remain in compliance throughout the application period in order to be eligible. This includes, being registered to do business in Hawaii, and that's through the Hawaii State DCCA. One thing based on, previous history, a lot of companies forget to do the electronic signature at the end. So this is just a reminder that, please follow the instructions at the end of the application to complete the electronic signature. And as you're going through the application, again, the purpose of this grant, this is a economic development grant. So some of the things that we'll be looking at is, the commercial potential of your SBIR project and the economic impact to the state. Again, on the review side, we won't be looking too much at the technical aspects because that's where the federal agency would do the review, evaluation, and vetting. So again, for the Hawaii matching grant, again, we're looking at the economic impacts, economic development for the state of Hawaii. So for HCE, again, I just want to reiterate, this is probably the most important thing, the most time-sensitive thing that you could get started now, because without your compliant HCE certificate, you would be ineligible to apply and receive funding for the state. So again, as you see pictured there on the right, this is a generic form. This isn't ABC Stores. We just made it up, ABC Company. This pretty much shows you, the status is compliant. And again, proof of compliance means that you meet the rules and regulations as stated in the Hawaii Revised Statutes and the Hawaii Administrative Rules for the program. Compliant also means that you're eligible for state funding. If you're not compliant, the company will need to contact the respective department for assistance. And I urge everyone to start now. Just check on your compliance and make sure you remain in compliance. Again, because there have been delays with certain agencies in processing the paperwork. So again, in order for us to continue reviewing your application or even accept your application, you would need a compliant certificate. And this is the process. I mean, so once all the applications will be available online. You submit the application and all required documents by December 16th. After that, HTDC will, the companies are expected to prepare presentations for the review committee. I think in the past we've done 5 to 10 minute presentations where companies would present their technology and pretty much summarize their project for the review committee. And then based on that, the review committee will recommend awards, which will then go to the HTDC board of directors to finalize and select the companies for the award. Simple process, I think, based on the timeline, we're hoping to award companies February. So that's why we're hoping, companies can submit everything by December 16th. We'll prepare everything by January, do all the review meetings, and then hopefully by February, if everything goes according to plan, we'll notify companies if they've been selected for award, and get the award checks processed. So as far as getting help, we understand, the SBIR program is not intuitive. HTDC, along with, UHOIC, we're here to provide any kind of help that we need. Steve mentioned, the series of webinars that we did earlier in the summer regarding SBIR basics. We have those still online, hosted on our website. So if you'd like to view those webinars, head over to htdc.org. And you can find those links and videos on our website. You can watch the speakers talk about SBIR and everything that you need to know if you're new to this. Again, all part of the SBIR orientation. We also have a list of providers that could assist with proposal writing. And again, the state matches the federal award for phase ones. And again, we also have on the manufacturing side, Innovate Hawaii. Should any of the SBIR companies need product development or manufacturing assistance, that's one other program that we can probably talk offline about on how we can help with your R&D or prototyping. And just some stats from recent years. So FY21, there were 4 companies that were awarded for phase 0. So in total, they received about 12K in funding. Phase 1, last year, we awarded nine applications, or there were 9 applications, we awarded 9 companies. I mean, it just shows you that, from those 9 applications, about $2.6 million of federal funding was brought to the state. And I think last year we had about 350K available for the match. The year before that, nobody applied for phase 0, but we did have 10 companies apply for the phase 1. They brought in over 1.7 million in federal funding. All those 10 companies were awarded, and at that time we had 520,000 available to award for funding. And this is just a short snippet of companies who have gone through the program and are and have successfully transitioned their technologies either from phase 1 to phase 2 and received matching funds from HTDC. And if you have general questions about SBIR, again, you can email SBIR HTDC. You can email myself at my email or Cindy. We also have a contact number here that you can call if you have any questions. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop sharing my screen. This pretty much concludes the the portion of the presentation that goes over the Hawaii SBIR matching grant programs. We'll spend a few minutes answering questions around the Hawaii SBIR program. And then I think for those companies who are, or participants who are familiar with SBIR, at that point you can sign off, because the latter portion of this presentation will pretty much provide an overview of SBIR, which if you already know, you don't need us to hear it again. So I'm going to stop my share, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Feel free to unmute yourself and just ask
Yeah.
a question.
Hi, Colby. I see your hand up.
Yeah, thanks so much. I'm curious, yeah, you know, the deadline for the matching is phase 0 is due in December, but the
Yep.
department, NIA, NIH deadline is until January 5th. Does that mean we have to have submitted our NIH, NIA, SBIR before we submit for the local matching for phase 0?
Correct. Yeah, because the deadline
Oh.
is due 16th, so you would have to provide proof of submission. The thing with this one though, I mean, so in your case, if you decide to apply, you know, later in the year, next year, January, then, you know, we would encourage you to apply for the phase 0 next year,
Next year.
FY, yeah.
Oh, I see.
The following funding year.
Okay, so I cannot enjoy my, I guess I finish early, I could enjoy my Christmas, right?
Yeah.
So
If you
Guess
finish
I'm gonna
early,
hurry up
then,
then.
then you can apply, but you know, it's
Gotcha.
I think we wouldn't want you to rush your application just because of the matching
thank
for
you.
the phase 0. Yeah.
So Wayne, I have a quick question. So kind of on what Colby's saying, this is Laurel Chapman from Lubrico. We do have an innovation idea that we've been working on with some R&D regarding some packaging protocols and things, but I'm just curious because the program is supposed to be set to end in 2022. Is that the HTDC portion or is that the whole federal program altogether?
I think that might be what Steve was mentioning earlier, might be the federal program. I'll need to get clarification on that. So I guess stay tuned. Cindy, maybe we can write that down as a follow-up item, just to see where the federal program is. I didn't hear anything when I was at the national conference last week in DC. So yeah, we'll dig in and see what's up.
Okay, and then just finally, so on the phase 0, I understand about having to have a outside third-party person writing the grant for the projects. It's now what you're saying too late to submit anything for the phase 1 until next year. You're suggesting not to rush a project, and that would be available for next year to do that.
So if you haven't applied for a phase 1 yet, unless you can get a decision by the federal agency that
Gotcha.
you were selected for award by December 16th, then you wouldn't be able to apply, because that's one of those
Right.
the required documents that we need, is that
Gotcha.
proof that you were selected for an award for phase 1.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So really next year, looking to see what's happening with that and maybe having a conversation with Steve would be helpful for us. So thank you very much for your time today.
Okay.
There was one question about I guess the rationale behind using a third-party grant writer for the phase 0.
Yep. That one I think is more of a administrative rules requirement that the funding or the phase 0 goes towards, you know, a third party and not an employee within the company.
And I think it's because if you are able to write a grant, then
Yep.
then you don't need the assistance. But if you do need help writing the grant and you hire somebody, then that's what the reimbursable is for. Does anybody else have any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question for Wayne.
Hi, Charlie.
Hey Wayne, welcome back from your trip. Hope it was good. My question is, how far back can we go? Is there a time frame that the phase 1 award needed to be awarded for this matching grant?
It's not so much the phase 1 award, it's the time of performance or the phase 1 activity. It would have to have been active during the calendar year.
Anytime, so anytime during 2021?
Yeah.
Okay. And can it have completed already?
Yep.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, because again, one of the purposes that companies apply for the phase one match with Hawaii is to use it for bridge funding, right? While they work on or wait on getting their phase two. So
Right.
that's definitely one way you can use the phase one match.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Kat, see your hand up.
Yeah, I actually was, I hit the applause one first
Oh.
instead of the hand up.
Oh, thank you for the round of applause.
Yeah. Anyway, I have a question about the HCE compliance certificate. If I print it out today, then it's compliant, does it have to be during the same day as you're applying, or during the period when the grant application is open, or can it, like, anytime from now forward, we can have it printed out?
I think when you submit your application, we're not really strict. You can print it out today and have it compliant, but just know that it has to remain in compliance.
Okay, sure.
So let's say throughout the review process, if we were to reprint your certificate and it shows non-compliant, we'll contact you and let you know that needs to be fixed, right? So, but I think for the application submission purposes, if you submit a compliance certificate, that shows that you are, in the system, that you are and compliant with all the state rules, and maybe just fill out a compliance just for, you just need to update the Department of Tax, for example. I think that's the kind of stuff that we're hoping.
Okay, but there's not a problem though, just to print it out towards the beginning of this. There's no date particular you have to have it. It just needs to be in
Right.
compliance. We can submit
Right.
whatever we have. Okay, great. Thank you.
Chris, you have your hand up?
Yeah, so I know that there was a couple other sessions in relation to this grant, and this is
Yes.
my first one actually jumping on. So just to touch base real quick, we mentioned companies. Are we talking both nonprofit and for-profit companies when it comes to this grant?
That's a good question, actually. I'll have to get clarification, but usually it's for profit, because this would be a business entity that would do the R&D research for the federal government.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
I think Colby has a question.
I had a question.
Oh, hi, George.
Hi, we have an SBIR grant that was awarded September 30th. We have supply chain problems, and we're not going to actually start collecting data until most likely February. Some of our equipment's taking a while. What time does the work have to take place? Within the year beginning now?
Yeah. But your company was selected for award, and you have your award letter.
We have the money. Yeah, we have it. We have the award.
Yeah. Then I'd encourage you to apply, George.
Yeah, you just have to have an active award.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when are the awards due, and when are the decisions made? How does that work? What's the time?
The applications are due December 16th. And then, there's some preparation involved, and, we have to convene the review committee, but we're hoping to have, companies selected for award, I think February timeframe. Right, Cindy? I think that's our target, February.
Yes, that's the goal, February.
Okay. Colby, yeah, your hand up again.
Yeah, thanks. Regarding the third party, does it have to be a certain type of entity? Like, does it have to be an official business that writes it? Or can it be a person you find on the street that says, I know how to write SBR so they can get paid? Is there any requirements around that? I know there's some groups that do, I heard about like Turbo SBIR and Larda and then Inspiralia, but I wasn't sure if there's any specific type of entity.
So as far as documentation, one of the things that I think the phase 0 application will ask for is an invoice from the third party for the grant writing.
Which you can make on Word. So I'm guessing that as long as they can make it on Word document, it doesn't have to be a specific LLC or something, right? Or a contractor.
I think in the past, we've always looked at it for some type of business.
Okay. And then I wasn't sure if the organization had a list of local like writers that they could share that we can tap into, or if there's any resources online to find SBIR writers.
HTDC and Innovate Hawaii has a list of
Okay.
grant writers. But what we would recommend is that you reach out to us so that we can get some background, and then
Okay.
we'll connect you with the one that would be most appropriate and has the expertise, and see of course, if they're available to assist you, and if it's something that they will be able to do also.
Very helpful. Thank you so much.
Kat?
I have a phase 1 grant. It's been on hold though because of COVID. It's to do a research project with kids and haven't been able to be able to carry it out because of COVID. And so one of the things that I need to do to change the design of the study to make sure that I can carry out this research, because I don't think COVID's going to go 100% away next year, is to provide more online surveys for the parts that I can, and to have everything more automated. So I didn't really have that funds for that in my original grant that I got. Is that something I can apply to help me finish my phase 1 through the state funds?
Definitely. I mean, because it is a matching grant, and as long as you meet the eligibility requirements, as long as you were selected for the award,
Yeah.
You'll be able to submit proof of the award.
Yes.
Again, all the requirements that the state needs, like HCE, and
Yeah.
in your application, you can state that, and then the review committee can take that into consideration when they assess some of the needs for the company, right? Because I think it's one of the questions why you're applying for the grant and what you expect to use the grant funding for, the Hawaii matching grant.
Can I ask, how much is the state funding this year, and how does it compare to previous years?
So last year we only had 350,000 for the matching grant program. This year we have about 400,000.
But what about before COVID? How much?
Before COVID, it was I think in FY 20 or FY 19 we had 520.
Okay, thank you.
And any other questions? Yeah, the reason why we're doing this is because in the past, when we did the overview first and then the SBIR matching grant program, we found that we ran out of time for questions. So I figured we flip it this time, since I think that's the main reason why most of the people are here, to learn about the opportunities for the Hawaii match. Okay, so there's a question in the chat from William asking about, what is more important, having a grant writer or having a SBIR letter of acceptance. So the purpose of the phase 0 is to provide assistance for grant writing, right? For the phase 0 grant that we have. So if you already submitted, or if you didn't use a grant writer, then you wouldn't be able to apply for phase 0, because there would be no reimbursable expense.
And then you need the award letter to qualify for the phase 1 application.
Yeah, and thanks, Joe, for looking it up. So I guess he looked up and found that nonprofits can be a subcontractor to meet SBIR eligibility. So yeah, so if you get the phase 1 from the federal agency, then you can apply for the phase 1 Hawaii matching grant.
Hey Wayne, this is Wayne. I was wondering if I could just maybe add to William's question about the grant writer.
Yep, go ahead.
So William, the whole purpose of the phase 0 is not for somebody to write it for you. The phase 0 is to hire a grant writer that can review what you wrote so that your chances of winning a phase 1 becomes higher, right? So the whole purpose is we want to increase the chance of you winning. So that's why the phase 0 is there, so that you can get another set of eyes to review your application, to make sure that everything's correct and everything is there. So it's mainly for companies that have not won a phase 1 before. So please don't get misunderstood that the phase 0 is for somebody to write it for you. It's basically to double check what you or another grant writer has done to make sure that you have another set of eyes to make sure that everything is met. So hopefully that clears the purpose of having a phase 0. Thanks, Wayne.
Yeah, thanks, Wayne. Okay. I mean, like I said, if there are any questions, again, feel free to email us directly, or you can go to our general SBIR email. It's about 2:30. I think
Kat might have one more question.
Okay.
Well, this isn't directly about SBIR, but you mentioned that you do have part of your agency that can help people with creating prototypes or product development. Because I could use some help with like packaging kind of thing. Is that something that you folks offer, or how does that work?
Yes, we do. I mean, so Innovate Hawaii is actually part of the NIST Manufacturing Extension Partnership, and we're the official MEP center in the MEP National Network. So this means that we have, in our network, we have, different centers that specialize in different things. So we might not have the expertise in-house or on staff, but we can definitely reach out to our network and find resources that you could use as part of, your research and development, or even just for, advice and insights into manufacturing something.
And there's fees associated with that, correct?
Usually it's low to no cost. It depends on what kind of assistance you need. I'll recommend, just setting up a meeting with Innovate Hawaii. So me, Cindy, or the other Wayne, and see what, we'll talk and see, what kind of assistance you need, and see what kind of resources are available across our network.
Thank you.
Wayne, can I add something?
Yes, Gary.
Yeah, hi, my name's Gary Yoshioka. I work at Diamond Bakery, the cracker and cookie manufacturer, but I also am the president of the Hawaii Food Manufacturers Association. And if you need help with packaging, particularly food packaging, I might be one of the guys that Wayne reaches out to, and I won't charge you anything.
Thank you. It's not for food though.
Well, depending on the kind of packaging, we still might be able to help you. So
okay, thank you.
Leave that open to you.
Thank you. It's Gary Yoshioka.
Very nice, Gary. Thank you so much for helping with our community needs. That's really great. Laurel.
Okay. Well, I mean, in other questions, I'll continue with the presentation just so, everyone here who wants to learn more about SBIR will get a quick overview. Again, for more in-depth info, on our website, we have the videos that we just did, earlier in the summer with OIC. They had an excellent speaker. I think it was Denise McKenzie that gave, SBIR basics. But I'm going to share my screen at any time throughout the presentation. Feel free to chime in, stop me if you need to ask a question, if something comes up. But so I'm going to share my screen. Let me know when you guys see it. Okay. Everyone see where we left off on the thank you page? Okay. So again, this is just a quick overview of SBIR and STTR, also known as America's Seed Fund. So the acronyms there, SBIR is Small Business Innovation Research. STTR is the Small Business Technology Transfer. Again, why companies are interested in SBIR? It's one of the largest, sources of seed capital. I think over 2.5 billion is set aside annually. And again, this is probably the reason why, we'd like to continue the program on the federal level and at the state level. SBIR grants are not a loan, so there's no payback. And again, it supports R&D and financing for cutting edge technologies. We'll go a little bit more into this in the following slides, just to sort of define, what cutting edge R&D technology is. But, on this slide, on the right, you can see some examples of companies who have started or spun out because of SBIR research, right? Like the iRobot, the Roomba is a good example. I think originally the Roomba was developed as a minesweeper or mine detection. Now it's used in a lot of homes for dust and debris removal and pickup. So again, the SBIR, STTR agencies, a lot of federal agencies fund R&D of critical need, and it's split up into 3 phases. So the phase 1, again, it's all about feasibility. Phase 2 is proof of concept. This is where usually companies would develop their first article for testing. And then phase 3 is commercialization. And one of the reasons why the federal agencies do this is because, they recognize that small businesses, the federal government can't do all the research and development themselves, which is why they rely on a lot of small businesses who have the knowledge and expertise to develop solutions to some of the challenges that the government agencies or departments need. Again, it has 3 phases: phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Generally, phase 1 awards, up to 150,000, and usually takes the project time performance usually 6 months. But we've seen some larger awards in the past. I guess it just depends on the agency and how much funding is available for the project. Again, as I mentioned, phase 2 is more prototype development. It's a longer time period, 24 months, and typically, around $1 million or under $1 million in federal funding. Phase 3 is the commercialization stage. I believe there are no SBIR funding because this is where usually industry partners would come in and start, working with the company directly to get the product out into the market. So there's a lot of federal agencies that participate in SBIR, Department of Agriculture, Department of Energy, Department of Defense. I just listed DOD here, but within the Department of Defense, there's a lot of other entities that have SBIR. So it's a wide range of research and development topics. Later on in the slides, we'll go over some resources that new companies can look at for solicitations and maybe even find resources that'll help them in their SBIR journey. So again, just the basics, right? For SBIR eligibility, this is for the federal level. You must be a small business, independently owned and operated for profit. So I think what Joe found out earlier was that a subcontractor could be a nonprofit if they're helping with the R&D. But I think as far as the application goes with the federal agencies, I think it's independently owned and operated for profit. The principal place of business, again, is in the US. Again, this is for US federal agencies. So, I think for the most part, everything has to be in the US, and 51% of owned by a US citizen. The principal investigator must be primarily employed by the small business. And then I think at least 2/3 of the work must be conducted by the business in phase 1. STTR, it's very similar to SBIR. However, it requires a research institution to partner with. And that's the reason why I put the UH logo there, is because UH is a research institution that you could work with on your technology transfer. And again, the this STTR is, to encourage, tech transfer from the universities, especially when businesses need, lab use or specific expertise from the university. This is the real low level, basic, typical STTR application process. The solicitation topics are released at different intervals depending on the agency. So that's why, it's not like all the agencies release it on January 1st, depending on which agency you're looking at, they have different periods where they have open solicitations and different deadlines. Once the proposal is submitted, it does go through evaluation of peer reviewers that are selected as, usually industry material experts or subject matter experts, I should say. And then, then based on their evaluation, they either select or recommend your company for a phase 1 if you're applying for a phase 1 or a phase 2. So earlier, remember I mentioned R&D cutting research. SBIR doesn't fund, product improvements. So if there's no high risk, then usually those proposals won't be funded, and especially if there's no critical national need, which is why the main reason why the federal agencies release these solicitations is because they are in need of a solution to a specific problem. The reason why I show the fidget spinner on the side is because, fidget spinner, just because you make it camouflage, doesn't mean it'll be an SBIR project. So, I encourage everyone to review the solicitations and see if it's something that you can do. One of the things that they look at also in your proposal is that, your research teams, if they lack credibility in the eyes of reviewers, which is one reason why, again, if there isn't an opportunity to work with the university, they have the researchers there. They could assist in, submitting a stronger proposal. So all the SBIR solicitations can be found at sbir.gov or grants.gov. The third listing is a resource page from that we've been using for a long time. For a lot of new companies through SBIR, it's a lot easier to find things through there. I mean, it pretty much aggregates all the links from the different websites into one page. And just a reminder, right, the SBIR is, the purpose is to, grow the business and become through commercialization. So they do require like a business plan, executive summary, cost proposal, as well as the technical proposal for the research. So ZinSys, this is just a screenshot of the web page. You click on that link and then it'll bring you to here. Again, a lot of links, pretty much aggregates the links. All these can be found directly at their respective websites, but I like going here because everything's in one place. One thing that has become more relevant recently is the events calendar. So with everything going virtual, this is where I used to go to look at what was happening with SBIR and if there were any virtual conferences that I could attend or info sessions to get more information. But as far as open solicitations, you can go to sbir.gov, or if you go to zinsys.com, it's right there in the arrow pictured. It'll bring you to the website. If you've never been to sbir.gov, there's a lot of filters that you can select to filter out different agencies or different topics. As you can see, right now, I think when I took this screenshot, the Department of Agriculture or the USDA had a lot of open solicitations, which is why you see these listings here. And as you can see, it's pretty clearly stated, the release date, the open date, the due dates, and the close dates. And that was it. Yeah, sorry about the last slide. I forgot to hide that one. That was for another program that we have no funding for, but hopefully for all you manufacturers out there. So I think that concludes the presentation. We'll stay on for questions. If you have any specific questions about SBIR or questions about your company around manufacturing, Cindy and I will be here. But thank you again for staying on and for joining us for today's info session. And maybe Cindy, you can let everyone know when the next one is.
Oh, so we're gonna have another info session on November 18th, same time, 2 to 3 in the afternoon on a Thursday. So if you have other questions, that'll be the time that you can talk to us face to face. And otherwise, you're welcome to email us as well.
Wayne, this is Laurel and Cindy.